Enigma depravatio est. Enigma crudelitas est. Seeker.
Positiu manger, Totem Tahantas, Tayar, Yuk Shampo, Manger on Tepe Hantas, Totem El Auto.
Welcome back, my fellow seekers. I wanted to share with you a site I visited in Dayton, Ohio called the Miamisburg or the Adena Mound Park. This site is believed to be first built around 1000 BC and has been repurposed by other native Neo-Atlanteans, as I would call them. The mound is 65 feet high with a diameter of 300 feet, but was reduced from its original height of 70 feet since its discovery in the 1860s and may have been larger in the past. The last culture to use the site was the Adena tribes, but this is mainly speculative because of the conical shape, which is simply attributed to the Adena people. But landscape architecture is always changing, so the conical shape could be the last iteration by the Adena tribes. The Adena tribes were part of a larger loose confederation of the Mississippian mound builders, which I believe was settled by Central American cultures around 3000 BC at Poverty Point, which I also have visited. The name Miami River near the site is actually named after the Mayans, and the Hopewell may have been descendants of the Mayans or a culture that predated the Mayans. So it's hard to say what was the original culture because even the name Adena was named for the Adena estate in Chillicothe, the home of Ohio's 6th governor. But it's known that there was a culture in the Ohio River Valley going back to at least 1000 BC who domesticated plant foods such as squash and sunflowers. They lived in semi-permanent settlements composed of 2 or 4 cone-shaped back structures located near streams. This mound was intentionally placed on a high bluff overlooking the highway of its day, the Miami River in Ohio, where trade of pottery as large as 18 inches and 14 inches in diameter that carried goods to other mound settlements such as near Serpent Mound, which I have also visited. This Adena site may have had a population of a few hundred to 1,000 for hundreds of years, where they were known to have created what I would call the Philosopher's Stone, aka metal, like copper for small tools and ornamentation. They also carved stone tablets with elaborate and abstract designs. They had elaborate funeral ceremonies for their leaders, and parts of the mound were actually taken apart for new bodies to be placed in. The site was partially excavated in 1869 when a vertical shaft was sunk from the top to the base, with 2 horizontal tunnels extending from it. Investigations have found skeletons covered with bark and yellow clay, 8 feet down, entombed in a sitting posture and facing east. Below this was layers of ash and charcoal, which may represent successive cremation burials or period fires used for rituals, along with burning the surface of the mound to maintain grasses. This could indicate that the Native Americans actually used fire to keep up with the maintenance of the mound, just as it is still done today. But over time this was neglected and the mound was covered with trees. What's also interesting is they also found decayed posts of 1 foot in diameter and resting perpendicular upon foundations of stone approximately 4 feet in diameter. This could indicate some kind of chamber or some kind of posts that stuck out of the ground. A second feature 37 feet from the top surrounded with logs was also discovered. Throughout the vertical shaft, various layers of what appears to be ash was encountered, indicating that the mound was built over time or reconstructed many times. This shows more of a complex management of the mound. The cut and fill used from the mound may have also been used to shape the plaza, where settlement huts were located. The plaza was shaped from the natural hill where the golf course sits today, northeast of the mound, to have a more raised area of 20 feet with a steep slope, which was partially taken advantage of by the golf course, but still reconfigured. But today most of the original plaza has been graded down and reshaped for new berms to fit the golf course. At the time it was not known if this was actually part of the settlement or raised plaza area, and still is not sure if this is the case, but it's one theory. It's also not known if there were other small mounds with flat tops. Due to development over the centuries, evidence has been lost. since it's located in an urban area. The purpose of the mound has never been clearly defined. It's possible that there's actually a limestone chamber below the base of the mound, but excavations have been limited. But it's also believed that it was used as a signal tower where those on the river could actually see the mound at night with its fire. But the mound at one time may have also had a ceremonial small hut on top, at times used for sacrificial rituals, possibly to summon the star beings, aka UFOs, or supernatural creatures. So the mound was multifunctional, and it was their church as well as their governmental spot of authority for their settlement. It's also known that some Native American mounds have retained a few generational wildflower ground covers that was aesthetically seeded by the tribes on the mound to give it color. But it was not known if this was the case for the Adena Mound, but more than likely either a flowering ground cover was placed or prairie grass was used to cover the mound, and controlled burns with axe heads were used to manage the invasive plants. It is known that the mound had a spiral pathway going up to the top, and that wooden posts had followed the path, which may have held torches used for a procession. The path was about 3 feet wide, covered with clay or possibly a gravel mix. Wooden logs may have also been used along the path as steps or possibly a limestone block. Nowadays, a limestone staircase has been built by the Civilian Conservation Corps back in the 1930s. Some of the stones may have actually been the original slabs found at the site and repurposed for the new staircase. Now, one thing many archaeologists don't consider when it comes to these mysterious large wooden poles that have been found at many Native American sites, even in the Pacific Northwest, it is the potential that these wooden structures have a connection to the totem pole. Now, it's mainly believed that totem poles are only in the Pacific Northwest of North America, but I think that tradition was actually passed up to the Pacific Northwest by the Mississippian civilization once it collapsed, and a few tribes kept the tradition alive and went and migrated to the Northwest. What I think might have existed at this mound were totem pole-like structures and a totem gate either at the top of the mound or at the bottom of the spiral pathway. It's possible that Adena Mound had totem-like poles with stone foundations circling up the mound, lighting the pathway. There may have been 6 or more poles lining the pathway up the mound, which may have acted like torchbearers for the tribe's ceremonies. Just as with some initiation ceremonies in the Boy Scouts for the Order of the Arrow uses, which I have been a part of back in high school as an Eagle Scout. These totem pole gates would depict supernatural creatures or past tribal rulers. The carvings would have been simple abstract depictions of animals or a person, or a fusion of the two. The art style was more of an exaggerated simplistic style versus a realism style. So I think many mound sites may have had totem-like entrance gates similar to the Japanese Shinto or Torii gate, aka bird gate. But instead of the plain gate abstract style, it would have been carved with abstract animal motifs. But the function of the gate still marked the sacred space that only the initiated were allowed to pass. Warriors may have been placed at the entrance of the gate, and these gates may have also been used to maintain fort encampments of the settlement. The whole settlement may have been ringed around by wooden post walls. But once the settlement collapsed, people used the wood for fuel, even to the point of destroying their totem gates. The gate at the entrance of the mound path would have been closely guarded if there really was an Atlantean Nephilim giant buried under this mound. This super race would have been seen almost as like demigods to the Native Americans. So their tombs needed to be guarded and secured dozens of feet below the base of the mound. And I do think the CCC was looking for the lost super race under some kind of classified archaeological excavation in the 1930s at many Native American sites. Evidence of their work can be seen in the robustly built pavilion. So long before the Japanese inherited the Torii Gate from India, the Native Americans may have had a similar tradition, going back to at least 2000 BC. The tradition of the Sacred Gate is universal, but may have first been invented in Egypt with its pylon megalithic stone gates. From here, the idea was refined and simplified and passed to India and then to Japan, but may have also been passed to the west, to the lost continent of Atlantis, with the lost city-state of Atlantis actually being in Egypt. So the next time you see a Japanese Shinto gate, remember that the native Neo-Atlanteans may have developed the tradition long before the Japanese inherited it from Southeast Asia. So maybe it's time that we bring back this tradition here in Atlantica. So thank you for watching, leave a like and a comment, and please share my videos to a friend. Stay tuned for my next video on the civilization before time. This has been Enigma Seeker. Keep seeking those enigmas.
Enigma depravatio.